In light of the recent COVID-19 coronavirus scare, a disturbing fact has emerged. In many places, including in Rochester, New Hampshire, domestic violence has increased. According to the police, they say that the month of April, the Rochester police saw a 157% increase in the amount of domestic violence-related arrests compared to April of 2019. In April of 2020, Rochester police made 18 domestic violence-related arrests compared to only 7 in 2019. This increase is so similar compared to the domestic violence arrests in April of 2018 and April of 2017 as well. 157% when you compare this past April, to the one in 2019, 18, and 17. 157%. It's a sad state of affairs. Granted, our whole society has come, quite frankly, on a complete turn. We're standing on our heads now. Jobs are gone. Money is tight. Kids are home from school. We don't know what the future is going to hold. That would probably cause a lot of stress and a lot of frustration. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people are turning their frustration and stress into the wrong form. It's expressing itself in horrible ways, and quite frankly, it impacts families, not only for the length of this virus and this stay-at-home order, but it'll last a lot longer as well. So I guess the question that I have for myself is, how do we handle this? How does a follower of Christ handle this stress and the frustration that they're feeling at being, quite frankly, shut down and locked in their own home for a long, long period of time? How do we handle that? What are the things that we do in order to maintain not only our integrity, but also our family and friendships that we have? What do we do? Luckily for us, I believe it's addressed in the book of James. James, in the first chapter, actually has a very unique set of verses. There's 2 of them, in James 1, 19 and 20. James kind of says 3 things as to what we should do, and then the reason why we need to do it. I'd like to talk about that this morning. So if you can turn with James chapter 1, 19 and 20. And it reads, "Every one of you must be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry, because the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God." Short, sweet, to a point. 3 things that we are to do, and the reason why we're to do them. The first aspect is quick to listen. Listening, of course, is not the same as hearing. Hearing is understanding the sound waves as they go in your ear, and then processing them and comprehending what's being said or what the noise is. That's what hearing is. Listening, however, goes one step further. It not only hears it, it also understands it. It mulls it over. It thinks about things. It processes the information, so to speak. That's what listening means in this sense. That's what James is trying to portray here. He's trying to say, hey, guess what? Not only are you supposed to hear, but you're also supposed to listen. In other words, you're supposed to understand what's being said. And the question is, why? Well, I think there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is it shows respect for others. Understanding what other people are saying is just a fundamental reality that we all want. How many of you have ever had a conversation with someone where you didn't want them to understand what you're saying, you just wanted them to hear? It doesn't work that way. I mean, if you did, I guess you could talk to, a bird or something that makes noise right back to you, but it wouldn't understand what you're saying, and certainly wouldn't be able to comprehend everything you're trying to say. No, we want people to comprehend what we are saying. It makes us feel valued. It brings value to us when we speak and people listen. That's one of the biggest complaints I hear in counseling all the time are people that come up to me and say the other party doesn't listen. They may be able to repeat word for word what I just said, but they're not listening to me. That basically means that they hear them just fine, but they're not mulling it over. They're not processing that information. They're not thinking. They're not giving that other person that respect they deserve. The other reason is, I think, quite frankly, it allows us to learn. If you keep your mouth closed, you actually learn something from someone else. That's one of the biggest challenges in life, keeping your mouth closed when you want to talk. But it's very interesting. In many cases in my life, when I've wanted to talk, perhaps that was the best time when I would listen. Um, I've learned so much just by keeping my mouth closed and listening to other people. Sometimes it saved me from embarrassing situations where I may not have totally understood what was going on. And other times it was just information that's very valuable that you can learn. In either case, listening allows us to learn. So when we are quick to listen, we do so by processing the information because it shows respect and it allows us to learn. That's the first thing. Being quick to listen, to process, to grasp what the other party is saying. So when you're having a situation where it's getting a little tense and a little stressful, be quick to listen. Understand what they're saying. Show that respect. Learn from where they're trying to come from. That's the first step. Second one that James says is be slow to speak. Now, speaking is an expression of us, and to some extent, every last one of us does it. Sometimes it's nonverbal communication, other times it's verbal communication. But basically, what he's trying to say is you're communicating. You're communicating. This is you expressing yourself. That's what it is. Speaking, expressing yourself. Being slow to speak, however, understands not only just the verbal form of speaking, in other words, the words that come out of your mouth or the air as it comes up through your voice box, through your tongue, and out your mouth. It's not necessarily just talking about that. It's also talking about the intent and what's behind it. We have to understand that words sometimes are very powerful. Don't believe me? Go ahead and cry fire in a crowded movie theater. Yeah, see what happens there. That's a word. That's all it is a word. And you can cause a stampede that can cause a lot of damage. Worse yet, go ahead and say something mean or nasty or something, and all the person has to do is be right behind you and you don't realize it, and you've damaged that relationship. Yeah, words, they can be powerful. We have to understand that. When James says, be slow to speak, he's saying, understand, quite frankly, the words can sometimes be powerful. Second thing that he says is understand that sometimes words reveal what's in our hearts. It reveals what's in our minds. It's the, if you will, the unveiling of the person behind them. And I don't remember who said it, but I believe someone said, it is better to leave someone guessing that I'm a fool than to open my mouth and remove all doubt. Words show a picture of what's on the inside of a person. Surely you can understand that. You know people in your life that no matter what they do and what they talk about, it shows what's important to them. Any one of you who's ever talked to me knows how important college football is and how much I follow it. Why? It's part of who I am. It's part of my life. It's inbred in me. And when I talk about it, I'm showing a picture of what's going on the inside my heart, inside my brain, where it rates in my priorities. The same is true with all words. Everything that you say. If every word that came out of your mouth was something about some singular topic, everyone could draw the conclusion that that singular topic was the most important thing for you. Likewise, if the only thing that came out of your mouth was pure garbage, the only thing they could draw the conclusion was everything that comes out of your mouth shows that what's inside is really not worth having either. Words are important. They are powerful. And they show what's inside of us. Being quick to listen, slow to speak because of what it does. And the final one that he says is slow to get angry. Now, anger is a unique thing because in many cases, we tend to have this idea that anger is just bad, right? We shouldn't get that emotion. That emotion should be shoved down and never had. Right? I mean, in the Christian circles, it just seems like we're supposed to be cool, calm, and collected all times, right? We're not supposed to let our emotions get rise to the surface. We're not supposed to, have that emotion. Not really. The Bible does not say that. What the Bible does say, though, in many places, is words to the effect of like, in your anger, do not sin. It kind of shows that anger is going to happen, but it's not so much that is the problem. Rather, it's what we do when we're angry. So when James says slow to get angry, he says, it's not that we're never going to get angry. It's not that we can't get angry. It's not that that's like wrong to get angry. I mean, if it was wrong to get angry, he would have said, don't get angry, right? Rather than slow to get angry. No, James understands the fundamental reality of human nature. We are going to get angry. What is anger? Well, anger is one of those things that happens, and basically it's a emotion that happens when a desire is not met. Take, for example, you have a dog. You let the dog out in the backyard, and you tell the dog directly, come. And the dog continues to run around without coming. You yell at him to heel, and that dog continues to run around, ignoring you altogether. Then you're starting to get a little frustrated with this at this point, right? The dog's not doing what you want it to do. See, the desire is for that dog to come to you and just sit. But the dog isn't. And you're getting frustrated not because the dog isn't doing it, but because the dog's ignoring you. It's a desire you have that the dog's not fulfilling. So that's what angry is. We get upset at a situation that isn't happening that we want. That's what anger is. But James says, hey, guess what? Be slow, very slow to get angry. Slow to get angry. Anger clouds our judgment. We understand that. And increases the odds of our mistakes. You do. Yeah, don't believe me? Just remember the last time you got angry and the words that came out of your mouth. Oftentimes when we're having arguments with people, we have this idea that we want to have the most cutting remark, the most brilliant logic, the most absolute concrete statement that we can make that's just going to blow that other person to smithereens, and we're going to come away victorious. Instead, something stupid comes out of your mouth. When you get angry, it clouds your judgment. Sometimes to the point where we totally regret it. The police even have a whole quality of crimes that they call that. They call it a crime of passion. It's where it clouds your judgment. Something gets in you and you just get so mad you can't think straight and you just commit your crime. There are probably thousands, maybe even millions of people that have regrets where they say, if only I was able to control my temper. See, James says it's not bad or wrong to get angry. He just says, be slow to get there, because there's problems if you do get there. They tend to happen. Anger also hinders our testimony. Think about it. You're out in the world, walking around. You got your mask on now because of the virus, right? And you're out there, and you're trying to yell at your dog to come. Your dog's not coming. And you're chasing him down the street, right? And you're yelling at him to come, and he's not coming. If you keep yelling at your dog and you keep getting more frustrated to the point where you just start stamping your feet and throwing a temper tantrum right there on the street, people are going to look at you kind of funny. They will. And they're going to say, what's up with him and why is he doing that? You see, being angry and making a fool of yourself while you're angry damages your relationship. Damages your relationship not only with people, it damages your relationship with God, because people see it and they understand that. And it's your testimony. All of it wrapped up simply because you're making yourself look like a fool while you're angry. So James says, slow to get angry. Keep in mind, he says slow to get angry. He understands you're going to get angry at some point. He says, slow down. Put on the brakes. Hold on. Anger can sometimes cloud our judgment. Anger can cause us grief. Anger hinders our testimony. These are all things we have. But take note of what he says in the last one. He says, be slow to get angry. Then he says, because the anger of man does not achieve God's righteousness. God's righteousness, what is that? Well, God's righteousness, first of all, was known through the law, according to Romans 3:21. In other words, we knew about it because God's already told us what it is. It's out there. Read the law. We understand it. And we understand that we gain this righteousness by faith. It is by faith we have gained this righteousness. Abraham, believed God and it was credited to him in righteousness. We have faith based on our belief in what Jesus Christ has done. So this righteousness that we have is given to us. And we understand also in Romans 6:13 that righteous living is a choice. It's something that we can do. It's every day that we get up and make a decision. It's every day that we stand up and we do the right thing. It's every day we keep quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Those are decisions that you and I make on a regular and complete day. But it does not achieve, it does not acquire, it does not get to, it does not win God's righteousness if we get angry. God's righteousness, well, basically turns this gift that God has given us, this righteousness that we have acquired, it turns it into nothing. And like I said before, it's part of the testimony that we have. If we treat it like something sad, then nothing will come of it. No good will happen of it. By faith, we have gained this righteousness through Christ. We have gained this righteousness of God by faith, and yet through our anger, we will not gain it. In other words, we are not going to achieve it. We're not going to hold up to that standard of what God's righteousness is. God tells us to be holy because He is holy. That's the standard God expects out of us. And if we get angry and lose our temper and we make those mistakes, we are falling short of that standard that God has set out there. The anger of man does not achieve God's righteousness. The anger of man does not achieve God's righteousness. By anger, we endanger the righteous lifestyle of God desires from us. We endanger that. That's a sad statement to realize that when we get so frustrated that we lose our cool, we are actually endangering the lifestyle that God wants out of us. In other words, it's not that we're being kicked out or even rejected or have totally lost the faith. No, it's not what it's saying. But what it's saying is it's not gaining. In other words, it profits us nothing. In fact, it's actually probably a negative aspect to it in the sense of, probably more damaging than helpful. Being angry really doesn't help us. Now, keep in mind, anger, we know, can lead to sin. Anger comes from bad decisions sometimes, and anger definitely produces strife in relationships. But I want to emphasize this: the controlled anger, being slow to get angry, it's for a reason. There's a controlled anger. Anger can be a response to sin. It can be. When we see the injustice in this world, someone being hurt or damaged or problematic, and it's okay to feel that righteous anger, that reality that we all face sometimes. It's okay to be frustrated and angry at a situation that we can't control. Anger, however, does not have to lead to sin. Just because we're frustrated by it doesn't mean we have to commit an act of sin. Think about Jesus, right? In the temple, right? He got in there, he braided together a cord of whips and went in there and cleaned out the temple. Yes, he was frustrated. Yes, he was angry. But in so doing, he did not sin. All in all, I think anger is kind of one of those emotions that God has created for us that is more of a warning sign, if you will. When we get to that point where we are indeed angry, I think it's a good time for us to stop and think. Stop and think. See, James just makes it very clear that there's three things that we really need to be doing, and the reason why we need to do it, I think, is because of God's righteousness. As a believer, as a pastor, I think it falls on us to uphold this standard of God's living that He wants from us. And how do we do it? How do we do it in stressful times, in situations where maybe we don't feel like our best, in times when it's really difficult and really hard to be this way? How do you do it in a situation where it's almost impossible to be loving towards your brother? The steps to take: being quick to listen, being slow to speak, and being slow to get angry will go a long way to restoring these relationships, keeping these relationships together. It'll go a long way to easing your stressful time. So during this shutdown, during these times where we're homebound and we're stuck in these situations, till this COVID-19 virus is done with. And you start getting frustrated. You start getting stressed out a little bit. Maybe the kids aren't behaving. Maybe the dog's not coming. Maybe your neighbors are doing something you don't approve of. You get frustrated. Whatever the situation is, hope you remember James and the advice that he gave when he said every one of us should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. For the anger of man does not achieve God's righteousness.